Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's event, hosted by the Lakshmi, Mittal and Family South Asia Institute at Harvard University. The mission of the Institute is to engage through interdisciplinary research to advance and deepen the understanding of critical issues relevant to South Asia and its relationship with the world. My name is Sneha Shrestha, and I am the Arts Program Manager at the Mittal Institute. The arts program is generously supported by our Arts Council. I've worked in this capacity for about 6 years now, and it has been wonderful to see the program expand over the years, and it's always a pleasure getting to work with fellow South Asian artists. In today's information session, I will be talking about the Visiting Artist Fellowship, what the program is, who it is for, how to apply for it, and what to expect. We will also get the opportunity to hear from two of our Visiting Artist Fellow alumni, Bunu Dungana and Sagar Chetri. You want to say hi, both of you? Wonderful.
Hi.
Thank you, Bunu.
Hi,
You too,
everyone.
Sagar.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. So at the end of the program, you will have the opportunity to post your questions in the Q&A box, and I will be answering them. So let's begin. So the Visiting Artist Fellowship is a unique opportunity for mid-career visual artists from around South Asia to spend 8 weeks on the Harvard campus to conduct research that will further inform their art practice. So the Visiting Artist Fellowship is different than typical artist residencies that you might have applied for in the past. This is not a studio residency. So instead, it is a residency where we want you to conduct research that will help you in your art practice in the future. So it's research centered. And you will have the opportunity to use Harvard resources to further inform your research and your art practice. The Visiting Artist Fellowship provides $8,000 for 8 weeks, which is the duration of the program. We also provide a round-trip economy travel ticket to Cambridge and back. We provide an orientation to campus during your first week, so you have the rest of your time to explore everything you'd like to. We will also provide you with an office space here at the Mittal Institute for the duration of the program. And you'll have the opportunity to attend classes, lectures, and have one-on-one meetings with professors that you might be interested in. The Visiting Artist Fellowship does not provide the following. So we do not provide studio space or art supplies, or we don't also provide a guarantee for approval of your classes. It really depends on the professors. And housing. So housing is totally up to you. From the $8,000 stipend that we provide, we expect you to find housing. Eligibility, who can apply? So artists who are current residents of South Asia, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Afghanistan, India, Myanmar, Nepal, Pakistan, Maldives, and Sri Lanka. Artists from these countries can apply if you're currently residing there. We want mid-career artists to apply. So this means you have an established body of work, you're actively exhibiting your work, in professional artistic venues, and, maybe galleries, museums, whatnot. But we want you to be an active practicing artist in their mid-career. We will also are looking for artists who can provide a plan and rationale for utilizing Harvard's resources. So in your application, we want to know, specifics of what you're interested in researching and how it relates to your artwork. So part of the program requirements include an artist talk or a seminar on campus. We will be displaying your prints of your work at the Mittal Institute. If you look at the picture here on the slide, this is May Wish, one of our VF alums, who's speaking in front of her work that is displayed in our office space. And we expect a 4 to 5 page report at the end of your fellowship and an exit interview as well. So let's talk about the application, the different components of the application. The first one is a resume or a CV, an updated one. and then an artist statement talking about your work. The artist statement, the limit of the artist statement is about 250 words. And we will also want to see your portfolio. So your portfolio needs to have about 15 images, so not more than 15 images. And also, the fellowship proposal is a very important part of your application. So in this proposal, we want to know how you would use your 8 weeks at Harvard if you were given the chance. So in this proposal, we want to know, specifics of what you want to research. What is your research topic? It's a fairly self-guided fellowship, which means your schedule is really up to you on how you utilize it. So in your application, we want to know this. And we also want to know, what are the social, economic issues that you will be covering or exploring in your research. The last component of the application are 2 recommendation letters. So out of the 2 recommendation letters, one of them we definitely strongly suggest it be from someone from the art world, a professional. Maybe it's your professor, maybe it's a fellow artist who is established. Yes. So these are the components of the application. Let's move on to helpful tips. So submit your application ahead of time. VF alums will tell you that the application takes time. And also, before you begin your application process, you need to apply for a Harvard key online. So it basically gives you a username and password. Your username and password will only be active after 24 hours. So if you were thinking you would send in your applications 2 hours ahead of the deadline, it's going to be impossible. So please start ahead, and you can take your time to sort of, fill in different components over time. And also, the other thing is make sure your recommendation letters have been submitted on time as well. So you will be able to send a link to your recommenders, but it is your responsibility to make sure that they have been submitted by the deadline. So the deadline, let's go through the application timeline. The deadline for the application this year is January 2nd, 2024. So January 2nd next year. The application currently is already open. The application is going to be open for about 2 months. So the fact that you're attending, all 46 of you are attending this seminar, this event right now, I would expect you to apply and begin your application. Just start it and work on it over time. Decisions will be emailed out at the end of April. And then the program itself will begin September 20 to November 15th. And then the spring program will happen on February 20 to March 15th. I'm sorry, it should have been 2025. So February and March next year. So this is the fun part of the information session. We get to hear from our VF alums. I'm so excited to have you both, Bunu Dungana and Sagar Chetri, visiting artist fellow alumni from Nepal. If each of you could speak a little bit about your experience, Bunu, if you want to go first, that would be great.
Hi everyone. So nice to be here. Thank you for inviting us. Like 2 years ago, I was there. It feels time has just passed by. Well, when I was applying for the application, I remember writing that I was interested in knowing more about the feminist theory and was also interested to know if my work fits. Where does my work fit? Would it speak to people in the US if I were to show my work there? And when I went there, of course, not everything was planned. A lot had to be done while we were there. So I remember in one of my research, I was reading on performance art and how women artists had used performance art as a feminist intervention, as as the art world was very patriarchal, male dominated. So from there, I sort of started looking at the word performances in different across discipline. And I remember attending class by Marcus Stern on acting, sitting through, trying to understand what does it mean to act, because it's part of the performance. And then I audited a class with Nicole Knoll in Women's and Gender Studies class, where she looked at psychology of gendered body, where the idea of gender was something that is embodied and not as something we have. And her lens was very sort of looking at gender through cognitive lens, and looking at these ideas of gesture, act, postures. A lot of students were doing research on how men and women behave in public spaces. For instance, how do we talk when we are on Zoom session, for instance, looking at these small nuances of gender. And then I also remember taking auditing class with Julie Malozzi, filmmaking as inquiry, because film is something that I'm exploring right now, actually. And going to her class was very helpful for me. She invited me to present my work. So it led to some interesting discussion on menstruation, mother-daughter relationship in both gender studies as well as film studies, about processes to mediums. And I remember Julie asked me to respond to her students' first cut, she didn't give me any context. She just told me, come to the class and just look at these films. And from looking at that film there to their graduating film, I think it was very interesting for me to see their journey of how they had created a narrative. I remember watching the film screening, which almost watching some 16, 17 films at one go, being drunk on films and being so inspired. To make it very short, of course, apart from the classes, going to the museums, going to different galleries. I remember going to MFA to, see the show called Women Take the Floor, which looked at women artists, American women artists history, and different mediums that were earlier not considered as art, across like time. I think it was the 20th century. So yeah, and also watching musical to opera to, and I think everything, watching short films in contemporary art. So yeah, I guess I feel I was all over the place taking different kinds of experiences, but it has helped me now as I'm making my own film, in the sense. So yeah, thank you, if I were to put it very crisply.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bunu. Sagar, do you want to share a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, I remember. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. To briefly talk about my experience, I think I remember the proposal that I had. I was working on a long-term body of work in the southern border of Nepal with India. So I was born and brought up in southeast of Nepal, and I remember like growing up as a child, I always wherever I used to go in Tarai region, it would always there would always be a river basically, and then when you cross the river, you would reach India. So I thought that Nepal was in a way made of all these flat lands, and wherever I would go, there would be a river, and if I crossed the river, I would reach a different country. But then slowly, when I grew up, the reality was different, and then Nepal was quite diverse in terms of so many things, diverse in terms of geography and demography, and there was a lot I didn't know. So, I mean, yeah, and then the work that I did, the Eclipse photo project, it looked at a history of Madhesi movement, Madhes community movement that was at its peak in 2015, the third iteration of the movement, I would say. and then my work was around that, the identity struggles of the Madhesi community. And growing up, I've shared, like most of my friends come from the Madhesi community, and then I've experienced, yeah, the lifestyle of the community. And then yeah, wait, but then I had what I had not I had never thought much about was the history of the border. Like how border played a very significant role in identifying, the um, yeah, in the identity of these people. So for the first time during this research, I wanted to look at the border issue, like, how the border was formed, who were the parties involved in making, like, drawing lines between um, India and Nepal, and the history of it, the whole. Yeah, I think, I don't know. I think that was the main idea of going to Harvard and then looking at the history of border between Nepal and India. That was drawn in 18, like when there was a treaty signed between the Britishers and the Nepali government back then. Yeah, that was the core idea. But then when I went there, um, I was like quite overwhelmed with everything that was available. Um, I was so fortunate to actually attend classes as auditor, of course. But then my professor at Harvard Graduate School of Education, Homan Arani, he was kind enough to take me in for the entire session. Like I remember auditing the whole class for the I think for a whole 2 months. That was a rare thing. And then I took another class with Sugata Bose. It was, I mean, all of this was around the history of South Asia. The class I took with at uh, Grad School of Education was on identity representation and politics. I was attending, meeting people. Yeah, I mean, I was keeping myself busy. I think Sneha remembers, I was just while I was preparing for this session, I was looking at the report that I submitted, and it was quite long, 3 pages, 4 pages, filled with all the activities that we have done. Like every week, it used to be filled with like running around, going places, visiting all these libraries. I got to know that Harvard had a list of libraries that, I don't know, crazy. Um, yeah. What else? Yeah, I got to meet Amartya Sen. I took an appointment and met him in his office hours, in his cabin. And I asked him a lot of questions. And I remember he told me that I don't have any answer for you. Like, that would be the highlight of my trip, actually. So it taught me how humble someone can be, even though they know so much. Yeah, a lot has happened, Sneha. I mean, I don't know like where to begin, actually. It was quite
Yeah,
an
I would,
eventful.
the thing I wanted to catch up with both of you, because I haven't seen either of you since the program ended. And while we wait for more questions to pour in, I just wanted to know, how has the VF sort of continued in your life, in your world, since you've left, and what you're working on currently.
Bundi, you want to go?
Wow, good question. I'm currently, of course, whatever you've learned, you've seen, it's not only about attending classes. I think it's also about being there, and getting different kinds of experiences. Of course, living in Cambridge, but also this fellowship allowed us to see a little bit of America. So I think a lot of things, I can't consciously name it, but there's things that sort of has left impressions, I guess. But yeah, currently I am working on one curatorial fellowship. There's an exhibition in December And then I'm also working on a small film that will be exhibited again in December. So I'm quite excited, nervous. Yeah.
That's amazing because I remember you were exploring thinking about film when you were here, and the fact that you were premiering your film now is pretty amazing.
Just
Congratulations.
a small cut of it. Thank you. But just a small cut, just a beginning. But yeah, glad to have started.
Yeah, definitely. Everything starts with small steps, right? Especially with art, it begins with an idea and then you work on it and sort of expands over time. That's amazing. And I remember that you were so excited to attend the classes too that you did.
Yes, I did, because I think I always wanted to go to an American university, in the class. And I've had a lot of friends who did liberal arts, and I was just so jealous of them, the way they would interact. And this was the dream to like go to an Ivy League and go to a class. I even went to one of the law classes, I remember. It was quite exciting to be there, even though I didn't understand these like big American cases.
Mhm.
But I think it was very interesting to hear how law in the US might look like it's sort of helpful to women, but actually it's not. It's very sort of heteronormative and patriarchal, and so yeah, different
Yeah.
kinds of experiences.
That's amazing. So besides classes, could you let our audience know what other Harvard resources you took advantage of during your time here?
Yeah, one was the fine arts library. I remember, looking at amazing artist books to different theories on art. It was one of the very valuable resources for me while I was there, when I was trying to look at different women artists who were working on performance. And apart from that, there were a lot of online talks we attended, I remember.
Right,
And
because
then,
your cohort was the
yes,
first cohort right after COVID. So
hybrid.
right, it was hybrid
Yes.
programming. So yeah,
Uh,
everything, like a lot of it was online.
and every week we had to get tested for COVID, by the way.
Right, that's true. That's true. And we met every week. So part of the program is checking in, you check
Yeah.
in with me once a week to just share your experience, how it's going and how I can help you
Yeah.
move further along in your research. And so, yeah, every week it was fully masked talks, I remember.
I
Yeah. Sagar,
think another part is also, yeah. Oh, sorry, Sagar.
no, it's okay. Sagar, what about your experience using some Harvard resources?
Um, I think I pretty much covered everything that I mean, maybe not. But I remember going to almost all the libraries, almost quite regularly, museums. I remember going to grad school of design, school of education quite regularly. Um, I mean, the Harvard ecosystem, it's
Mhm.
quite uh, yeah, rich. I would say, like there's always one thing or the other happening all the time, and you always have things that you can go and just sit down, and people that you can meet. Well, the Smith Center that you have there, like I don't know, like it feels like a small village,
Right.
and there's always like yeah, places that you can go to. But yeah, mostly libraries.
Mhm.
Um, I remember going a lot to the Smith Center, sitting there reading, working.
Yeah, so tons
Mm,
of places to
yeah,
on
yeah,
campus. There are tons
definitely.
of places where you can quietly read, or if you want to be around
Yeah.
people, you can definitely do that. I see a couple of questions. I see a question for you guys too, if you don't mind staying on camera. That'd be great. So the first question is, hello, would it be possible to apply if you're born from Bangladesh
or of descendant, but currently residing in the US? So the answer to that is we definitely give priority to artists who are currently living and working in South Asia. And so the program is geared towards that. I hope that answers your question. What is the role of the auditor? So I think this refers back to when Sagar said he audited the classes. So this means that you'll be sitting in on the classes since the program begins. I think about a month after the semester begins. You might not be able to do all the assignments or everything for the classes, but auditing a class means you have access to the class, but you're not necessarily getting a grade or submitting assignments. But you get to sit in on the class, maybe participate in the discussion, get access to the readings of the class. What is the criteria of deciding mid-career artists? So for mid-career artists, we want to know that you've been practicing art for a while, you're active in the field, you're showing work actively, and you have considerable experience showing your work, speaking about your work, and your work has depth and range. So these are the things that the jury is looking for in a mid-career artist. So another question is, can you tell us more about the recommendation letter? That's a great question. We request for 2 recommendation letters. It's really helpful if one of the letters are from an art professional. So it can be your lecturer who can speak to your relationship with them, speak about your work. Basically, we want to know people who can speak on your behalf about your work and speak about the kind of artist you are, about the work. And so this is what we look for in a recommendation, in the 2 recommendation letters. And I would say it's a quite important part of your application. A lot of times artists will submit their application, but because the recommendation letters haven't been sent in, we can't consider their applications. So I would say work closely with the person that you request for your recommendation letters, and make sure it's submitted on time by the deadline. So the next question is for Bunu and Sagar. This is a fun one. What do you think set your application apart from the numerous participants? What do you believe contributed to your acceptance into the program?
Sneha, I think you can answer that.
Well, okay, that's a good question. I would say the most important part from the jury that I heard was that your proposals were really clear. Not only was your work really compelling, but the proposal where you talked about what you wanted to research, like your research topic was clear. And it was also clear, what about Harvard you're interested in, because Harvard University is so huge. So, you weren't just telling the judges that, oh, I want to go to Harvard University and conduct research. Okay, well, what about Harvard University? Which library? What professors are you interested in? What books are you currently reading that might help inform your research? And you want to continue that here on campus. These things were very clear in your proposal. And through your work, it was also clear that you've been doing, both of you are photographers, and it was clear from the portfolio that you sent us that you've been doing your work for quite a long time. And your work was also to a certain extent, informed by research already. And we could see that your presence at Harvard University would not only help our community learn more about South Asian issues that we haven't come across here, but also the fact that you would be getting a lot out of being on campus as well. So I would say that these things, I still remember your applications. So I would say these were the things that really stood you out from, made you stand out from the many applications that we receive.
I will add a little on that. I think remembering how I prepared for my application was like
That's very
Like Sneha said, I was lucky to meet Sneha beforehand when she was here in Kathmandu. In the similar kind of info session she organized at somewhere. And then I took her advice. I think I started quite early on the application. For me, I think, yeah, looking at the history of, like, the kind of projects that South Asia Institute, the Mittal Institute organizes, and covers in the region. That was learning a little bit of history of the institute also helped me, like, because the kind of work that I was doing was quite fit. Like, there was, yeah, it felt like there was some similarity in one of the projects that Mittal Institute was running. I think that was an advice I received from the website itself, where there was some tips that was shared. And then I remember, like, recommendation letters also. I think it helped a lot for me to get in. Like he asked to set my application apart. I think, yeah, preparing. I think preparation is the key. Like starting beforehand, like not waiting for the deadline, and actually committing to this. Like it's not something that you do like on the side while you're doing 10 other stuff. Like, I think if you're serious about getting into this fellowship, then it requires some sort of yeah, serious thinking and
right.
research.
Yeah, definitely. And the tip that I would share is definitely go through our website, get to know the Mittal Institute, get to know various websites that belong to Harvard University that you might be interested in. Definitely talk to previous VFs because they will have so much to offer. Also, we interview every VF who participates in the program. And so their interviews are online on our website. Definitely read their interviews if you want to get to know more about their work, what they're doing. One of the question here, Bunu, maybe you can answer this. Did you possess any prior research experience? And if so, what type of research did you engage in? Could you provide a brief overview and what your research, ultimately that you conducted on campus?
The research does that mean previous experience of research before coming
Yeah,
to?
so I think this person wants to know if you had previous research experience and then what it
Oh,
was.
yeah.
And then when you came on campus at Harvard, how did your research ultimately, develop or form?
Yeah, so I had, many years ago, I started my career first as a researcher. And I worked as a researcher for almost 2 to 3 years. And even after that, that was in the social sort of a sector where I would travel to different parts of Nepal and conduct what we call qualitative research. It's more about storytelling. And so from there, I had started sort of my career. And then later, I again was back in research through Nepal Picture Library a little bit, through Feminist Memory Project, which the second phase was started in different parts of Nepal. So we would go there and, start looking at feminist histories, local feminist histories in different places. So that also helped and shaped my, I think, thinking while I was applying. And of course, I was very clear that I wanted to do something on gender. And, so it wasn't very difficult for me to go begin my research in the sense. What expectations I had. Because I was looking at idea of performance, so it became quite focused for me, even though performance has a broad range of it. So I would even study the social sciences, anthropology. I would look at performance art, then I would go watch different kinds of performance. So it was also very intuitive. I think something very important in research, and we forget, is this: how we can also be guided by intuition. At that time, how are you feeling? What is it that you're being drawn to? Even if you're drawn to various things, how do you make the connection? I think that kind of little bit of my, I think, MA has also helped me to find connections across. I think various things that sort of play into research, and not just like one aspect, I feel. I don't know if I answered.
You mute, Sneha, sorry. Mute.
There we go. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And a lot of artists might not be as familiar with research and might think research is just digging into books, and it is. And it is also, asking questions, being curious, interviewing people, attending classes, learning, looking at lots of, artwork that you might not have access to. So all this is also research. Thank you, Bruno. We have a question here. How is the cast of the sculpture also included in such a program? So if you mean if we've had artists who have been sculpture artists, you can apply. We've had photographers, painters, sculptors apply, so definitely apply. The next question is about recommendation letters. Is it possible to obtain a letter of recommendation from someone of a different nationality? Definitely, yes. You can have anyone in the art field who knows you well, who you've worked with, who knows your work, to write a recommendation letter for you. The next question is about recommendation letters also. Are the recommendation letters submitted directly? So once you begin your application process, you'll see that you will be able to enter the email address of your recommender in the application. And so then an email will go to your recommendation letter, the person you've requested a recommendation letter from. And so ask them to check their email. So they'll be able to access themselves and fill out the recommendation letter form, attach their letter, and send it in directly to the application. Let's see, another question. So if someone is not a research-based artist, that is totally okay. Not being a research-based artist is okay. We want to know if you're interested in research, if you're interested in further informing your artwork. So for example, Bunu's work was or is about performance as well. And so she wanted to learn more about performance and what it means for women performers. And so she did her research in that, and that in turn is helping her artwork today. It doesn't mean she's a full-time researcher at the moment, right? So hopefully that helps. That answers the questions. Do you believe, here's another question. Do you believe that a college student studying fine art at the moment can apply? Should they apply even if they have a limited work portfolio? So I would say that this visiting artist fellowship is for mid-career artists. So I would say, maybe in a few years, finish your degree, create a strong body of work, show your work, be active, and apply in a few years. Someone just said, I don't know anything about the program. Can you tell me the objectives of the Zoom meeting? So welcome. This Zoom meeting is about the Visiting Artist Fellowship for Mid-Career Artists. If you look in the chat, there have been various links that are posted about the fellowship. And I think that was the last question. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here and for your questions. Thank you, Bunu and Sagar. We're so proud of you and so proud of having you as our Visiting Artist Fellowship alumni. We hope to be even more engaged with our alumni community since now there are so many of you. We are on our 9th year of running the Visiting Artist Fellowship, which is unbelievable. And it's really wonderful seeing you, and we'll be in touch. So if you hadn't So for everyone, if you didn't have the opportunity to ask questions, on the screen is my email address. Please send in your questions. The more you know, the better you're informed about how to fill in the application, how to become a good applicant. Because your work might already be strong, but if you're not answering the questions of the application about your research, about your proposal and whatnot, it might not qualify you. And we want to help you put together a great application. We want to see great applications from South Asian artists currently living and working in South Asia. So my email address is shrestha@fas.harvard.edu. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending this session.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sneha. Thank you.
Thank you.